Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of On Deck with the Charlotte Knights. Matt Swierad with you. And today's special guest is a former Knights player, but still no stranger to Knights baseball, Chris Getz, Director of Player Development now for the Chicago White Sox, the Knights parent club. And Chris, good to see you. How are you?
I'm doing great. Considering we're all healthy. I wish we were out playing baseball, not me personally, but at least watching it. But we're making do.
Talked to some of the guys last week. They're still in Arizona. Are you there or in Chicago?
Presently still in Arizona. There's a couple of reasons behind that. Primarily just felt that it was better for the family to remain here. My wife and I've got 3 kids. They were actually out in spring training. We had a scheduled week for them to come out. And that's when, Major League Baseball decided to shut things down. And a couple days later, you catch word that, Chicago's pretty much shutting down. Schools were canceled. So we made the decision to just stay here, not hustle back. The weather's certainly better here than there, or at least it was then. And I would imagine it will continue to be better, a little bit more space. So it was, I'm glad we made the decision because we have made the most of it.
So for you, baseball-wise, I know you guys are still busy. What are things you're doing?
Well, being out in Arizona, I come into the complex 3 days a week, but that's for various reasons. One, I'm able to do some work here. It's a little bit easier than the place that we're staying with, with the 3 kids running around. But so out in Arizona, come to the complex, staying in touch with our players the best we can, whether it be Zoom calls like this. Weekly check-ins, having staff, keeping everyone engaged and connected and updated, really. Unfortunately, the updates are, I don't want to say minimal, but there isn't much to update. We're all kind of waiting for that good news that things are starting to clear from just a health standpoint and that we can move forward with some baseball. But we've also taken, I guess, somewhat advantage of the time to continue educating our staff and players on certain things that we were going to carry out this year. And so, just like anyone or hopefully anyone, we're just making the best of the opportunity or best of this opportunity with staff and players. But there's nothing better than actually going out and playing the game versus sitting here and talking about it.
During spring training, you guys got a lot of work in before it was shut down. How the young guys doing right now?
Gosh, I've spoken to Ricky Renteria a bunch, not only during spring, but even since we've been shut down. But a lot of our guys were impressive. They came into camp ready to go. There just seems to be a different kind of temperament, confidence, and air about them. Louis Robert, a lot of people were excited about. Certainly, you guys were able to watch him play a lot last year. He was having a nice spring training. We were looking forward to it. We continue to look forward to seeing that unfold in Chicago. Danny Mendick was having a nice camp. Nick Madrigal. Michael Kopech looked really, really good. And then we have our other players that continue to mature at the major league level, and Tim Anderson and Lucas Giolito. Just you go around the diamond from a position player front and then on the pitching side, and we were feeling pretty good. Guys look good, and I just felt like we were in a really good mental space approaching this season.
Didn't look like there were a lot of holes in that lineup. It was going to be a fun lineup to watch, especially when you later added someone like Edwin Encarnacion, a veteran bat with Abreu, when you had the young guys coming up. And this would have been year 2 for Eloy Jimenez, and sometimes that next step, that next year is always an explosive year for him. I thought he did a great job, especially dealing with the injury last season.
Yeah, I mean, going into this past off season, we targeted some players that we felt were really going to complement this young core that we've been able to cultivate. And you speak of Eloy. Matter of fact, him and Edwin Encarnacion are very close. Edwin's known Eloy and his family, vice versa for years. So he's almost a big brother to him, let alone what Edwin can do as a player and what the production that he's had throughout his career. We felt was really going to be great for Eloy. But if you look at Eloy's year, he definitely missed some time. He missed some time early. And that first year in the big leagues is rarely easy. Pitchers were attacking him a certain way, but he was starting to make those adjustments. And then he had some injuries to set him back. But once he finally was able to stay on the field, you started to see what, we were accustomed to throughout the minor leagues. And, have a kid just roll in and hit 30 home runs in a partial season, put up the numbers he did in August and September was very encouraging. He had a nice off season working on his body, his mind, and he was having a nice spring. So we definitely felt like he was ready to take that next step to help the team win.
It's interesting when he came back down on the rehab last year, you see him and he's such a big guy, and he even matured more physically from the year before when he was with us, but he's still just a kid and has that enthusiasm when he's out on the field, loves to play the game, and that's infectious.
No, it is. He plays this with this ease about him, which, I guess maybe in a former player, I wish I was able to tap into that, but he's always smiling. He never gets too down on himself or his teammates. And, with that, with his personality and his temperament, it's just kind of infectious. And I think it kind of loosens up the team, his surroundings, which we felt was really going to be helpful for us moving forward.
There is a lot of youth in the team, but as you look at the older guys that are there and you brought in, can really help the young guys, especially like, I would think, Luis Robert, who there's so many expectations when he does get to the big leagues of what they, fans think he's going to be. And he's so talented, but to have that surrounding cast with him is going to be, nothing but helpful for him, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, he from a talent standpoint, you would stack him up against pretty much anyone with the way he's able to impact the game in different ways. But we realized going into the year there were going to be some adjustments that needed to happen, and it's our job, certainly on the development side, but also when you put a team together to help him with the transition. Very similar to the approach we were taking with Eloy. But now we've been able to get the Edwin Encarnacions and the Grandals and Mazzara, who's got some experience. I mean, surrounding those guys, surrounding Eloy and Louis Robert with players like that have been through this, not just 1 year or 2 years under their belt. They've got multiple years. They've got playoff experience. So whenever a guy inevitably begins to struggle, hey man, this is normal. And hopefully we can minimize those struggles because, as a young player, it's easy to start questioning your ability. Both very confident players, but when you're playing at the major league level, it's going to challenge you, and to have the support is invaluable, really.
A lot of your top prospects now getting close or have reached the major leagues, but the cupboard's not there. Tell some of the fans, some of the Knights fans, of the talent that right now is in the high A, double A, heading to triple A levels.
Well, we've got Andrew Vaughn, who we were able to take last year in the draft, who had a very impressive camp as well. It is just spring training. It isn't real major league games, but for a kid in his first spring training to put together the at bats, the way he was handling himself with his work and interacting with his teammates. It was really fun to watch, and White Sox fans certainly should be excited. Nick Madrigal, a guy that spent some time with you guys last year, just continued to get better last year. Started in Winston-Salem, I wouldn't say he got off to just a blazing start, but he showed some signs of there's plenty of production. We moved into Birmingham and he just took off. And before you know it, he was up in Charlotte and continued to hit. And then last year also in the draft, we were able to take 2 young pitchers, and Andrew Dahlquist and Matt Thompson, both guys that we feel really good about. Young, athletic, strong pitchers that we feel like we can dream on a little bit. And they've got makeup that we feel good about, that they're going to be able to reach their ceiling. But and then we've got the outfielders that were in Birmingham last year, and some of them I would say we're really looking forward to this year because it wasn't smooth sailing for them in AA. You know, the Mike Rodolfo's, the Blake Rutherfords, and Louis Gonzalez, some guys that got their first taste of AA and you know, didn't put a full season of production necessarily together, but there were glimpses, and to be able to tap into a little bit more consistency, we were looking forward to seeing that. But those are guys that we know at some point are really going to help us at the major league level. Cody Hoyer, a reliever that pitched at both Winston-Salem and Birmingham, was having a really nice camp, living in the upper 90s. Good slider and changeup. We felt that he wasn't too far off from helping our major league club. He's an exciting arm. You guys saw Dylan Cease certainly last year, and then he transitioned to Chicago. And, you know, I think the experience that he had last year is really going to help him as well, because it wasn't smooth sailing for him. He more or less struggled for the first time, and the way that he was going about his business and pitching in games in spring training, you saw that perhaps going through those struggles was really going to pay off this year.
You know, Chris, now in the front office, but of course you played the game, you came up, you went to Wake Forest, then went to Michigan before getting drafted by the White Sox. So you knew North Carolina as a young guy, and then you came back in AAA to play for the Charlotte Knights. Tell us about your time as a player here. If I remember correctly, that was a pretty good team you were on.
Yeah, you know, well, for one, yeah, I've had a lot of experience in North Carolina, whether it be, like you said, Wake Forest before transferring to Michigan. But then, you know, went to Kannapolis, briefly at Birmingham, and then Charlotte in 2008. And you know, just the White Sox in general, we've got excellent affiliates. I mean, you know, you certainly can't really recruit when in professional baseball, but if you could, I would certainly show off the cities that our players are going to play in, the facilities that they're going to be developing in. But looking back at my memories, I mean, they were very good. I mean, I felt like I was well prepared for the big leagues. But you know, the one thing that stood out with the Charlotte Knights was the older stadium in Fort Mill, and man, that was a great place to hit. Now it is still now, and now in downtown Charlotte. However, there's just a lot more fans. Let's be honest. I mean, that's a major league ballpark right there, and we're fortunate to have that because, you know, to play in front of that type of audience, you can only simulate so much on the development side. Simulate like that's something that's similar to what they're going to experience at the major league level, and Charlotte does a nice job of that just based on the setting that they have.
You know, one thing I asked Wes Helms when we talked last week was, you know, about winning in the minor leagues. And I know the emphasis is on developing players and to get them ready for the major league team to help that team win. But you being a former player, how much emphasis do you put on the different levels in the minor leagues of also being competitive and teach these guys not just the game, but how to win, so when they get to Chicago, they have that mentality?
You know, wins and losses is, you know, it's funny. I actually had a really good conversation with Ricky Renteria about this about a week ago. And we were talking about winning, right? Like, you know, as competitors, as athletes, professional athletes, of course you want to win, right? Like and what, you know, those are results though, right? You're talking about a win and a loss, and it's really about developing the winning player. And when you develop, and what is a winning player? Winning player is someone that understands what it takes to win a ball game for their team. So everyone has a different role. You know, for me, it was make my plays, you know, on the infield, turn the double plays, get on base, wreak havoc on the bases. You know, situational hitting. Now the game has changed a little bit, and home runs are left and right, but it's really understanding the player that you are and focusing on the things to help that team win. And if you do all of those things, the preparation and the execution, regardless of winning or losing, you can look back and, hey, I feel pretty good about that day. I felt pretty good about how I approached things there. That is winning to me. Now, if you have enough players, position players, pitchers, approaching the game in that fashion, I have no doubt that that's where the wins come. And that's truly, for me, what player development is all about. So to look at wins and losses throughout the minor leagues can be a little deceiving. Certainly at the end of the night, we want to get our W's, but it's about how we went about our business and continue to educate those guys. So because I know what Ricky's going to demand of our players when we get up there. And it's simply that.
Yeah, that's really great information. Now, kind of great transition too, going from that, talking about winning. Who's the most competitive in your household? I'm thinking maybe your wife Nicole's right there with you. I remember years back the story where she was competing on The Amazing Race, the television reality show. Tell us how that all came about and what it was like.
It was a really cool experience for her and for our family. At the time, it was just her and I. We didn't have our first son or our 3 kids, but she had a friend and actually a former knight, Gordon Beckham. His now wife participated on the show, and Gordon and I, and this is after I was traded from the White Sox to the Royals in spring training, because our spring training site was only a couple miles away. We used to live together. And at the time, Gordon was dating his wife, Brittany, and I was dating, my wife at the time, Nikki. So Nikki was out visiting, Brittany was visiting, and they became friends. And Brittany actually recommended Nikki for the show. And, I think it was one spring training, we thought about it, and it just didn't feel right. It wasn't the right time. And then fast forward another spring, and it came up again. And, we looked at each other, discussed it over, and you know what? This is a chance in a lifetime. I guess if you would line reality shows up against others, if you're going to do one, let it be a competition like this. And she went out and did it, and she had a lot of fun with David DeJesus' wife, Kim DeJesus. I give her a hard time that she didn't come back with a first place prize and $1 million and a car or a vacation. Matter of fact, I don't even remember what she came home with. It might have been nothing, but either way, it was a really fun experience for all. And it was, I was still playing, and I'll give you a quick story on it. So when they were filming the show, I want to say it was July, and this would have been July of 2013. For those 30 days, I didn't have any contact with her. And on a weekly basis, I get a call from someone on the show, just checking in. Nikki's fine, asking how I was, and that's kind of how it worked, because I didn't want any information leaking out. Well, throughout those 4 weeks, the show ends. They're finished filming, and she's all excited to finally give me a call and hear my voice, and likewise hear hers. And she's we're checking in, and she's like, "Well, how's Kansas City?" I'm like, "Well, I'm not quite there anymore because I've been sent down to AAA." So in that during those 30 days, so David DeJesus, I think he didn't blow out his shoulder, but he had a shoulder injury. He was on the DL for 2 months. And then I was sent down to AAA. So point being, our wives left, and just the wheels fell off.
That's unbelievable. That's pretty cool. And finally, I know, hey, I really appreciate doing this today. Now that you're in the front office, the transition, what was it like going from being a player and putting that uniform on every day and being in that clubhouse with all your friends to now being the one that's kind of in charge of really other people's careers?
It was interesting. It was kind of a mix of like awkwardness. I wouldn't say I missed playing too much, because I was very content with the decision I made. Now, I didn't want to fall into the trap of getting away from the game for too long, because I still love the game, and I had been interested in the front office. I wanted to learn more about that. So anyway, an opportunity arose, and I didn't want to sit on it. And I jumped right into it with the Kansas City Royals. I was very fortunate to be in the front office there. For one, I had just finished playing with them, but also my first year in the front office, we won the World Series. And just experiencing not only those playing days and seeing the transition from their young players, kind of their young core, become winners and then win a championship. That was, I think, really helpful for me to experience that in both roles with the position I'm in now. But sure, there were times where it was a little bit awkward. Go down to the clubhouse and not wear a uniform, to wear suit and tie at times, just little different attire. But the demands of the job I've really enjoyed, and that kind of also helped with not missing the game too much. It's I've been really fortunate to experience that time in Kansas City with the leadership group and what they were able to accomplish there, and now transitioning here and certainly getting closer to some good times in Chicago.
Well, you're in a good spot right now, my friend. I know, being back to the White Sox, the team that drafted you, and from a distance, I've been associated in the minor leagues for about 27 years now with the White Sox. So many people are still there that when I first started back in 93, 94. So it is a family type of atmosphere, isn't it? Especially during these times, that has to make it feel a little bit better.
I think so. I think it does. And like I said earlier, when we're doing these phone calls and staying connected, and I think it is a little bit more of a family atmosphere than perhaps some other places because of the history that we have with each other. So when you face struggles, any type of struggle, it's certainly easier with family and people that you've known for a while. But and that's really something that our owner that has taken pride in. We all have, and really nurturing people that are about the White Sox that want to be here and continue to grow the organization. So, but yeah, for myself, and I know many others, coming back to the organization is perhaps easier just because of so many familiar faces, and that's people working for the Knights or someone like yourself that's been involved in minor league baseball. These are faces that you've seen throughout your career, so it just makes it that much more enjoyable.
Chris, thanks so much again for your time today. Hope you and your family stay safe and healthy, and hopefully we're playing baseball soon. But hope you guys just stay well.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for having me, and stay safe as well.
Thanks so much. Chris Getz been our guest, Director of Player Development for the Chicago White Sox. Tune in for more next installment coming up soon with On Deck with the Charlotte Knights. So long, everybody.